Welcome to Doctors at Work. My name's Matt Daniel, and this podcast is part of my mission to help doctors create successful and meaningful careers. Today's topic is portfolio careers, and I'm having a discussion with Shiv Sharma, who's an anaesthetics trainee, a clinical entrepreneur, and also he co-founded the Portfolio Clinic, which is a peer mentoring social enterprise helping junior doctors' career development. In this episode, he tells me about his own journey from the conveyor belt medicine into autonomous career decision making. He tells me about the mindset needed to change challenges into opportunities, and he shares his top tips for help budding medical entrepreneurs succeed. Welcome, Shiv. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me. So I'm an anaesthetics trainee in the southwest of England. I've been in the ACCS program for a couple of years now, so I'm about halfway. I studied in London, and then I moved to Liverpool for a couple of years, doing my foundation program there. It was sort of quite a general foundation program, mixture of surgery and medicine, and it was really after those 2 years that I gained a bit of autonomy, I guess, in my career, and made some decisions which changed the direction which I was going slightly. So unfortunately, it was COVID during my F3 and F4, so I couldn't travel to Australia or abroad like a lot of other sort of F3s and F4s did. So one of the things I did was I spent some time on intensive care to develop my sort of understanding and my interest in anaesthetics. And then I did a 6-month leadership fellow in London, and that's where I had to build a project, and I met a colleague of mine who's now the co-founder of the Portfolio Clinic, a mentorship organization I run. And that was sort of a small QI project I ran during that leadership fellow. And then in my F4, I did a bit more intensive care. I joined the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Program, again, to get more of an insight into how to be an effective leader and how to build an organization to reach sustainability. Before entering anaesthetics training, which is where I am now.
And our topic for today is portfolio careers, and lots of people are talking about that. What is a portfolio career?
So I think it's a really has a diverse definition in itself. I think it's something that originated, I think at least from general practitioners and the fact that they had such a variety of special interests. But now it's spreading quite dramatically into other areas of clinical medicine, and effectively just means having a diverse career. So I think having an interest in parts other than the clinical aspects, and I think for me that's the leadership side and the mentorship side of running the Portfolio Clinic. For others, it could be research, it could be education. Or it could be an entrepreneurial endeavor.
And why do you think it's such a popular thing, in UK at the moment? It might not be the same elsewhere in the world, but certainly in UK, lots and lots of people are talking about the idea. What's your take on it? Why so many of us are going down that route?
Well, I don't think there's a single answer for everyone. I certainly think that having work-life balance and burnout is a really key part of it. I think you can just tell from the amount of success of less than full-time training programs that doctors are looking for sort of less time focused on their clinical career and more time either at home or pursuing their own interests. And I think historically, people would use their F3s and F4s to do internships. And I think although, we have lots of opportunities to go abroad, people now use their F3s and F4s to, do clinical fellows and not just in clinical areas, but in digital health, research, for example. And I think that just really adds an extra bit of I guess, sales to their CV, whilst also giving them time to explore an area that's new to them.
And I think that's the good thing is that as doctors, we're all we're talented, we're highly skilled, we're highly driven, we're highly motivated. and that means that actually, chances are that there would be all of these related portfolio roles in whatever people end up doing that we would be good at, or at least a number of people would be good in those roles. And I think in many ways, I think it's good. It's good that these kind of opportunities exist, because if you think, the leadership opportunities that you talked about, the clinical entrepreneurship programs, that they didn't exist, for me 25 years ago now. Gosh, that makes me sound old. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why I couldn't do that now. Yeah, I mean, of course I could do that now. But it's not something that existed 25 years ago. And I think it's great that those kind of things exist, so that some people develop themselves very much along a clinical line, but we do need to have people that are entrepreneurs. We do need to have people that are good at leadership. We do need to have people that are good at research and medical education, and all of that brings a real variety into medicine. I think one of the things, for me with my own portfolio careers is that there are things that I want out of my career, and a purely clinical career doesn't necessarily give me that. Yeah, so maybe so same as you had your moment of autonomy where you figured out what you wanted. I probably had mine also, and one of the things that I realized is that I enjoy my clinical career, and that meets some of the things that I want, but there are also other things that I want in a career, and a purely clinical career doesn't meet that. Yeah, and that's not to say that I don't enjoy the clinical career, but I do. It's just that there are other things that I want out of my career also. But can you tell me about your autonomy moment a little bit more?
So it's interesting because I guess at the time I didn't see it as gaining more autonomy. I knew I was, having the opportunity to do something new and to have choice over it. But my priority, at the end of F2 was, well, where am I going now? Am I going, well, I feel like I'm heading into anaesthetics training. I'd like to do that. What can I do to support me in making that next step? I knew I didn't want to go directly into anaesthetic training. I wanted to take some time out and have that. I guess a little bit of freedom in the life side of my work-life balance. So my time at home and have a bit more opportunity to go away and travel, I guess, as well. Obviously, COVID hit during that period, so it didn't happen. But yeah, primarily it was, what is going to be the next step for me? What was going to be the next, milestone for me to help and enable my career? So I guess it wasn't, top of my mind having the autonomy. In hindsight, it was more, well, it now is a bit more obvious while I had that freedom and that autonomy. But yeah, going back to what you said, I think it's interesting how careers have changed from where medicine was much more of a vocation, and now people are looking to sort of spend longer out of training to gain whatever experience they want to gain. And I think that for me, that was really important. I've been encouraged from the very beginning to not treat clinical training as a rat race, and not, shoot through it. It's difficult. It's difficult because you see everyone around you, and there is this sort of pressure to progress up the ladder and get to the end of training as quickly as possible. Whether that be for financial reasons or stability. I think they're important. I think for some individuals, getting to the top of the ladder is key. But for me, I'm trying to hold on to the aspect of, ensuring that I gain as much diverse experience that will hopefully make me a confident and also adaptable consultant.
It's that what I'm hearing you do is a conscious decision as to where is my career going, what am I doing, why am I doing these things, what's the purpose, as opposed to that kind of conveyor belt where sort of people grow up and everybody else in the family was a doctor and everybody else at the school's going to medicine, and you from the age of, I don't know, from the age of 12 onwards, you're going to be a doctor, and you step on a conveyor belt, and next thing that you're 40, 50, and you've never actually actually considered what it is that you want. And there are lots and lots of different people going to medicine in different ways, but the key thing from what you're outlining is you have consciously chosen, you've consciously thought about what it is, or at least in retrospect it's obvious that you've consciously spent some time thinking about what it is that you actually want, rather than just going on the conveyor belt and trying to run as quickly as possible to keep up with everybody else.
Definitely. And that conveyor belt is attractive because you see all your colleagues around it progressing. And it can be quite disheartening, I guess, when in some ways you can see yourself being left behind. In other ways, you're obviously progressing. But I think at the same time, being on that conveyor belt can be disillusioning. I think training programs in this country are quite rigid still. And I think if you don't take that time to think about why you're doing what you're doing, and why you're at that, your current stage of the career, I think you can get disillusioned, you can get burnt out. And it can mean that actually you end up, either having to take a break in training, or which may be necessary, or getting burnt out.
No, I like that idea of making the choice. And we all want different things in life, and we all make different choices. Thank goodness for that. I think the main thing is it's consciously choosing what it is, and of course that changes, yeah. Because in another 5 years time, 10 years time, you look again and you say, well, actually, sort of this isn't right for me now. I now want something different, and that'll continue throughout one's career. But the idea of consciously choosing. I'm interested. You did the leadership fellowship, and then you did the entrepreneur program. How did you get into those kind of programs?
So the first sort of non-clinical fellowship I did was after my first intensive care fellow in F3. So I spent 6 months on intensive care unit, and during that time I was actually I was just sent a link to a new innovation fellow, which was in London. It was by an organisation called Medics Academy. It was a pilot, and you could apply to be on the programme, and that would involve a 6-month fellow where you could locum at Imperial Healthcare Trust, and at the same time you could do a PG cert, and the PG cert uniquely was pretty hands-on. So there was an element of management and leadership, and there was an element of medical education, but instead of it being essay-based and research-based, it was largely assessed practically. So from the education point of view, you had to film teaching sessions that you delivered, and then analyze them and critically appraise how you taught. And then the other element was as a project. And I quickly realized that my interests were in career planning for junior doctors, in the portfolio element, in career development, and that I shared that with another person on that course, and that's where sort of we started planning for the portfolio clinic. So that was really just an application, and someone introduced me to it. I had seen it, on social media, but it was only after someone prompted me to apply that I decided that it would be a good idea. But because it was a pilot, there was no feedback on what it was going to be like. It was sort of a bit of a plunge into, I guess, the void, and to see what stuck. In terms of the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, so, I mean, it's been growing year on year. I'm not sure how many candidates they have now, but it must be over 1,000 multidisciplinary healthcare professionals who are on the entrepreneur program. But essentially, again, I think I'd been following it for a while. I knew a couple of people who were on it, who advised me to apply at least. And at the time, it really, for me, was probably, it felt out of my reach. I was only a year into the portfolio clinic by that point. I didn't feel like I was running a business or an organization. I felt like I was sort of, I guess there was an element of imposter syndrome at that point. But I understood the entrepreneur program to be sort of a directional program, but also a supportive program to help me learn about the different elements of running a business, and how to understand finances within the NHS, how to build something whilst working in the NHS. I think that's their key aim. but it grew once I was on the program. They had their own mentorship program, so I was linked to um, an expert within the NHS, and that really sort of proved to be helpful and beneficial to my own development and I guess subsequently the development of the portfolio clinic into a social enterprise.
Tell me about the portfolio clinic then.
So the portfolio clinic, we launched it in 2021, and the aim of it was really to support junior doctors in their career development and help them obtain training posts in their desired specialty. It is a free service which links a junior doctor with a near peer mentor. So if someone is interested in a surgical career, an anaesthetics career, it links them with someone who's just early in their stages of that career, and aims to sort of help them with their decide on that career path in the first instance, but also build a portfolio which can help them gear towards applying to that specialty and have a fulfilling career at the end of the day. And we're now 3 years sort of down the line. We're changing the way we do things quite dramatically. We've been a rolling registration process for the last 3 years, so people could join at any point. But now we're sort of honing down on more of a cohort system where we have a certain amount of mentees on our program for a year, 6 months to a year. And that's going to be launching this September. So we're really excited about that. And we're also developing educational resources for portfolio development, virtual events to sort of really augment that experience for the mentees in our program.
I hope you're enjoying the show. Please click subscribe so you'll be notified when new episodes become available. This podcast is part of my mission to help doctors create successful and meaningful careers. You can be part of that mission too by forwarding this show to one person who you think might benefit from listening. Thank you. Now on with the show. And how did you get the idea that there's a need out there for this kind of stuff?
Well, I guess interestingly, me and my co-founder were the users, were the market in a sense. So when I applied after my F3 year, well, during my F3 year for training, I was unsuccessful. I ranked really poorly. I thought I was a good candidate, and I'd been building my portfolio for several years. I knew that anaesthetics was a good option for me since probably mid medical school. So I've been gearing my portfolio towards it for a while, and not getting in that round was really disheartening. I put quite a lot of effort in, and I didn't really have anyone to support me during that process of sort of I guess first dealing with the repercussions of not getting in, and then sort of picking myself up again. And I think that was quite a key part of developing the portfolio clinic. We felt that junior doctors needed support at quite a pivotal point in their career. And in our opinions, educational and clinical supervisors weren't the right people to be doing that necessarily. They could be to an extent, but what you really needed is someone who was more relatable, who could provide more practical guidance, who'd recently been through that process themselves. And more recently, we've started to support international medical graduates because we feel that actually that transition into the NHS is another way in which doctors could be really supported and could benefit from having a doctor who's been through a similar process before.
The interesting thing, is that you experienced a problem that lots and lots of other people have experienced, but other people haven't done something about it. So I'm interested in the kind of the entrepreneur mindset, because you're not the only person who's not been successful, and you're not the only person that struggled to find somebody who knows the ins and outs. But the difference is that you turned, that experience, you turned that adversity, into a business or into an enterprise, into a career opportunity. So, I mean, what kind of mindset does one need to turn challenges, into an opportunity?
I think it's a difficult question, but I think for me, when I was thinking about when I started the portfolio clinic as a small quality improvement project, it was never the intention was never to run it as a business or a social enterprise. Um, it was to run a quality improvement project
Okay.
effectively. It was a small project. It was testing the waters in a sense, and I guess only with the success of that small scale quality improvement, and again a lot of encouragement, did I then decide that running it as a social enterprise and actually growing it as a national organization would be a good idea. I think the mindset you have to have when you're taking a project like that or an idea like that and trying to grow it is, I think first of all, you have to be incredibly open-minded. There's a huge amount of learning we have throughout our clinical careers, but it's very, very different to the business environment. And you have to be ready to basically go back to sort of school and learn and take advice and accept that you're going to get things wrong, and learn from those mistakes. And I think if you're willing to sort of just make errors and learn from them and accept that you might not be going down the right path, but you're progressing in one way or another with your organization, and you're confident that you can come back from those sort of mistakes that you make and learn from one way or another, then that's probably one of the most important characteristics to have. I think the other thing is that I don't think I'm the first person that's looked at specialty training and entry to specialty training and has thought there is a business in here. I think if you look around, there are plenty of people offering interview courses for a certain amount of money, or portfolio development courses. So I don't think I'm necessarily doing something in an incredibly new environment, but I'm just doing it in a slightly different way. So my focus was on the holistic mentorship and career guidance rather than coaching towards the specific outcome of becoming better at interviews or better at a specific, like an entrance exam. And I think that is part of innovation. I don't think you necessarily have to be doing something brand new. I think you might just have to, you might just be looking at something in a slightly different way, and trying to alter and change a problem, and change the way people see a problem, I guess.
I think I really like this idea of something small and then seeing where it goes and then adapting and going with wherever the energy is, and it's a kind of question that I sometimes ask if I'm interviewing very senior people on the podcast, and I might say something. How did you become president of the Royal College of Royal College of Radiology, or how did you become head of School of Surgery? And inevitably, sort of people probably say actually exactly the same as you, which is they say, I didn't wake up one morning thinking I want to be president of Royal College. They did stuff and it landed. They did a bit more and it landed, and then somebody asked them to do, and they said yes, and they were good at what they did, and then it kind of evolved. So it's perhaps if one thinks to oneself, okay, I'm going to be, professor of anaesthetics, that might be a long way away, and you think, okay, there's such a big gap, I wouldn't know even where to start. But the people that I've interviewed, and maybe sort of same as you, with running your enterprise, yes, perhaps you have an idea as to what matters, but actually it's a whole series of small steps that eventually achieve something that's great.
I think that's so true. I think that's a really poignant aspect. And I think it's all about exposure. I think, as you're saying, like a lot of people describe being at the right place at the right time in some aspects. And I think that's entirely true for me. And I think a big part of that, though, is exposure. And so if you provide yourself with the opportunity and you meet that opportunity, you're more likely to end up in pursuing something and getting a bit further and learning something new. I think if you have an opportunity where you're a bit more reserved and you decide that that's probably a bit too outside of my comfort zone, you're less likely to sort of be introduced to newer things. You're less likely to, I guess, meet those people that end up being your mentors who for the next 5-10 years, and I guess getting involved in that project that ends up meaning quite a lot to you. So I think I try and, I guess, to take that on in my career and put myself outside of my comfort zone as regularly as possible, because I know that actually it might mean that I meet someone that I share a particularly important relationship with, either in my career or outside my career.
I wonder if I could perhaps maybe ask you to summarize, but also expand a little bit, because I'm interested in what what creates a successful portfolio career, or what creates a successful medical entrepreneur. That's kind of my final question, really. What makes a successful portfolio career, and how you get there?
I guess, again, a bit of the imposter syndrome is creeping in, because I'm still very early in my career, and I think I've still got a huge amount to learn. And I think the portfolio aspect of my career is, I hope, still in the early stages. But I think the key take-home points, for those listening, that I would like to impart would be, try your best to not rush through your training and through your career, and take things at your own pace. If you have a particular interest that you want to explore, use an opportunity to do that. So yeah, the first tip would be to try not to rush it. The second thing is, I guess, revolves around exposure, which we've just briefly talked about, and trying to utilize new opportunities as best as possible, and get outside your comfort zone. And I think that's where the best opportunities and the best relationships lie. And I guess finally, the last one is a bit biased, because I run a mentorship organization, but I think having a mentor is so important. I think having someone who can support you, I mean, again, not in just your career, but in your clinical career, but in your non-clinical career, is really important. And I've benefited so much from that. I've been very lucky to have mentors over the last few years who've helped guide me and support me in some of the quite important decisions I've made, with my career, but also the portfolio clinic. And if I can implore others to try and get a mentor and do the same, I think that would be an excellent outcome from a podcast like this.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.